We are all taught to wear a face. From the moment we arrive, the world begins shaping us through names, rules, roles, expectations whispered and shouted through approval and silence. And so we crafted, piece by piece, a mask. Some masks are golden, ambition, beauty, competence. Some are humble, helpful, quiet, invisible. But all are masks. We wear them not out of vanity, but survival. The world rarely asks who you are. It asks what you can appear to be. And so you learn to perform. You learn which smiles earn safety, which words deflect rejection, which poses get applause. You become an image, refined, curated, praised. And somewhere inside, something begins to flicker, a discomfort, a restlessness, a quiet knowing, this isn't all of me. But the applause is loud, and so you continue. You succeed maybe, you win, you gather titles, lovers, approval, meaning. And yet, in quiet rooms, in sleepless nights, you feel it, the hollowness beneath the mask, the ache of unrevealed truth, the fatigue of pretending, the whisper from the depth. There is someone here you have not met. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we present to the world. A necessary fiction, but a fiction nonetheless. The danger is not in wearing the mask. The danger is in believing you are it. Because what the persona hides beneath its polish, its charm, its function, is the real, trembling self, the one you left behind when you first realized the world does not always want truth. And so it waits, behind the roles, behind the control, behind the curated perfection. It waits for the moment when the mask begins to crack. It waits for the fall, because only when the image collapses can the soul begin to rise. You believed you knew who you were. You had a name, a story, a structure. You woke each day into a world that seemed to accept this version of you, the one who knew what to do, where to go, how to carry themselves without cracking. You had routines, responsibilities, reflections that confirmed your shape, and for a time, this was enough. Enough to function, enough to succeed, enough to believe in the person you had become. But there is a difference between wholeness and structure. One is alive, the other only holds things together. Structure is not self. It is scaffolding, a framework you build to protect the fragile truth that you're still searching for something deeper. You called it stability, but it was repetition. You called it peace, but it was numbness. You called it identity, but it was performance. And yet the illusion worked. It gave you motion, direction, and just enough certainty to keep the real questions buried. Am I truly alive? Who am I when no one is watching? What would remain if all of this fell away? Jung wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And so we stay busy. We fill the silence. We keep the mask intact, because without it, we fear we might disappear. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying. You were never whole, not in the way you imagined. You were safe, but not real, visible, but not seen. The illusion of wholeness is a trap made of mirrors and familiar walls. And somewhere within, something stirs, something sacred, something wild. It watches your structure with quiet patience, knowing that one day it will fall. And only then will you begin to meet yourself. It does not begin with thunder, not always. Sometimes it starts with silence and emptiness in places where meaning used to live. You wake up one morning, and the story no longer fits. The words taste stale. The mirror reflects someone you no longer recognize or never truly knew. Sometimes the collapse is quiet. A job lost, a relationship ending, a slow unraveling of certainty. Sometimes it is brutal: death, betrayal, illness. A storm that tears through everything you thought was yours. But however it comes, and nothing is where it used to be. The scaffolding you called identity begins to tremble. The roles you clung to slip from your fingers. The mask fractures. And behind it, not clarity, but chaos. You panic. You grasp. You try to put the pieces back together, rebuild what was. But the structure no longer holds. And deeper still, a knowing rises. It was never meant to. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The collapse is not punishment, it is revelation. What you built on false ground cannot last. What you borrowed from others, the expectations, the masks, the roles, was never truly yours. This is the moment of sacred undoing. Everything that falls apart is everything that was never real. And now, in the dust and fragments, you are left with something strange: yourself. Not the image, not the title, not the carefully managed persona, but the raw, aching presence beneath it all. You may not know what to do here. You may feel lost, adrift, exposed. Good. Because here, and only here, can something real begin. Not another mask, not another performance, but a return to the self that has been waiting patiently beneath the weight of everything you thought you had to be. There is a place the light cannot reach, not because it is dark, but because it has been buried, intentionally, carefully. You enter it when all else falls away, when the surface cracks, when the structure collapses, when the mask is gone and silence becomes unbearable. This is the descent, not into madness, not into failure, but into the part of you you were taught to avoid, the shadow. Carl Jung said, "The shadow is everything about ourselves we do not know." Not because it is hidden, but because we refuse to look. In the shadow lives your anger, your envy, your hunger, your fear, but also your creativity, your sensuality, your honesty, your raw, unfiltered life force. We were told to hide these things, to fragment, to exile. We became polite. We became acceptable. We became false. But the shadow waits, not to harm you, but to make you whole. When you descend, you will not be greeted with light. You will not be met with comfort. You will see things you spent years trying to silence. You will see yourself. And you may flinch, you may deny it. You may say, "That is not me." But it is. It always was. The descent is terrifying because it is intimate. It strips away illusions not just of the world, but of your own story. You will question who you are. You will doubt your goodness. You will grieve the parts of you that were abandoned long ago. But stay with it. Do not run. Because the shadow is not evil. It is unloved, unseen, unmet. And it is through meeting it fully, honestly, painfully, that you begin to reclaim yourself. Not the self you show the world, not the self built on control, but the whole self, the soul beneath performance. This descent is not a detour, it is the way. Jung did not offer salvation. He offered integration, a path not of escape, but of embrace. You will not rise until you have fallen into your own depths. So descend with courage, with patience, with reverence. what you find there will not destroy you. It will finally, fully reveal you. There comes a point when even the descent ends, not in breakthrough, not in revelation, but in stillness. No more falling, no more struggling to hold on. You lie in the dark not as a victim, not as a seeker, but as someone who has run out of ways to avoid the truth. This is the long night of the soul. Jung never promised light. He knew the soul moves through darkness not to be punished, but to be purified. Not purified of sin, but of illusion. You feel no clarity here, no triumph, only the aching silence of having lost what no longer fits and not yet knowing what comes next. You feel like nothing. You feel like no one. And in that feeling, something ancient stirs. Because the you that feels lost was never you. It was who you tried to be. It was who the world asked you to become. But now the world is quiet, and so are you. This night is not a punishment. It is the womb. You are not falling apart. You are falling inward. There is no map here, no formula, no promise of how long it will last. You may cry. You may go numb. You may ache for a version of life that felt easier, even if it was false. And still you must remain. Because something is growing here, in the dark, in the silence, in the unbearable slowness of waiting without knowing. It is not a new mask. It is not a better self. It is you, unadorned, unfinished, real. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is the work. Not escaping the dark, but seeing within it. And in time, not quickly, not predictably, you will notice the slightest shift. Not a light from outside, but a warmth from within. Not a ladder up, but a breath that feels steady. Not an answer, but a presence. You, still here, still breathing, still becoming. The night is long, but it is not forever. And when it ends, you will not be who you were, but who you truly are. When the dust has settled and the silence has stretched long enough to quiet even your thoughts, you begin to notice something. Not a revelation, not a voice from heaven, but a presence. Subtle, still, unmoving. You did not build it. You did not earn it. It has been waiting. This is the self. Not the persona, not the story, not even the wounded child or the forgotten artist or the grieving soul. It is deeper than all of that. Jung spoke of the self as the totality, the wholeness that holds the opposites, light and dark, masculine and feminine, fear and desire, creation and destruction. The self is not what you do. It is what you are when there is nothing left to do. You find it not through striving, but through surrender, through ruin, through the collapse of everything you thought you needed to be. It does not announce itself. It does not seek approval. It simply waits beneath the roles, beneath the reactions, beneath the noise. And when you finally meet it, you feel something strange. Not pride, not joy, but quiet. A deep, grounded quiet. The kind that feels like home after lifetimes of wandering. You begin to remember what it is to move without proving, to speak without performing, to live without protecting an image. There is nothing impressive about the self. It is not flashy. It is not loud, but it is unshakable. You have touched everything false. You have held it, loved it, lost it. And now you are here not on top of a mountain, but sitting among the ruins of who you used to be. And in those ruins, you notice light, not entering from above, but rising, from within. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he never said it would be easy, or beautiful, or clean. He only said it would be real. And now you know what that means. You are not becoming someone new. You are finally meeting the one who never left. Looking back, you may still feel the ache, the echoes of collapse, the tremors of everything that shattered when you were no longer able to pretend. But now, you begin to see something else, not the devastation but the precision. It did not come to punish, it came to free. What felt like violence was in fact truth. What felt like loss was return. This is grace. Not the soft kind that comforts, but the fierce kind that burns away everything false. The fall stripped you of certainty, of control, of the image you worked so hard to protect. And in its place, silence, stillness, self. Grace is not always gentle. Sometimes it comes as fire, as flood, as the terrifying unraveling of a life you thought was yours. But grace never destroys what is real. It only removes what isn't. You did not fall. You were brought down to where your soul was always waiting. Brought low not to be diminished, but to be rerouted. Jung understood this, that the psyche heals not by climbing higher, but by descending deeper, not through transcendence, but through embodiment. The fall teaches surrender, not as defeat, but as reverence. It shows you that the ground you feared would break you holds you, that the pain you thought would end you shaped you, and that who you truly are was never above the storm, but at its center. The eye of the hurricane, still, present, unmoving. This is the mystery of grace. It does not save you from the fall, it meets you in it. It does not erase the night, it gives you eyes to see in the dark. And what you see finally, clearly, is that you never needed to rise to become whole. You only needed to fall into yourself. You return, but not as you were. The streets look the same. The sky still shifts between blue and gray. The faces around you still speak the language of the surface. But something in you is still, and that stillness moves with you. You no longer rush to be understood. You no longer crave the mask. You no longer mistake productivity for worth. You walk slower. You listen longer. You speak only when your words feel rooted. This is not enlightenment. This is not victory. It is presence, earned in silence, born in the dark. You do not announce your return. You do not proclaim what you've seen, because words are too small for what you carry now. You are not trying to be whole. You simply are. And the world doesn't quite know what to do with that. It will still try to mirror you back to yourself through praise, through rejection, through systems that prefer your mask over your truth. But you are no longer available for performance. The self you met in the ruins does not require validation. Jung wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." You have stopped looking for recipes. Now you craft your own rhythm. You choose quiet over noise, depth over distraction, truth over comfort. You are no longer afraid of the shadow. It walks beside you now as guide, as teacher, as part of your wholeness. You return not healed, but integrated. You carry your contradictions. You no longer need to resolve them. You are both strength and softness, grief and gratitude, fire and silence. You've stopped trying to ascend. You've remembered how to root. Now, when the world shatters around you again, as it will, you will not collapse with it. You will bow, you will feel, and you will remain. Because you are no longer living from the outside in. You've returned from where the soul speaks, and you will never again forget how to listen. You searched, you climbed, you broke, you fell, you unraveled. You walked through shadow, sat in silence, lay in ruins. You faced the mirror in the dark and didn't turn away. You thought you were lost, but you were being returned. Not to something new, but to something ancient, something that was never gone, only covered. Layer by layer, you removed what wasn't you. The roles, the voices, the protections, the noise. And beneath it all, quietly, patiently, you. Not the image, not the version, not the striving soul. Just you, whole, bare, unbroken in essence, even when everything around you fell apart. This is the paradox. You never became yourself. You only stopped being everything else. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what he did not say is that who you truly are was never missing, only waiting. Waiting for the silence, waiting for the collapse, waiting for the moment you would be still enough to notice the presence that had always been there. You are not what you survived. You are not what you lost. You are not even what you found. You are what remained, what endured, what knew all along. Now, you look in the mirror and see not perfection, not certainty, but truth. You, as you are, not needing to become, not needing to explain, just being. This is the return, not a full circle, but a spiral, wider, deeper, more awake. You walk with your shadow, you speak with your soul, you breathe like someone who remembers. And the world may still ask for your mask. It may still tempt you back into performance. But now you smile. Now you pause. Because now you know you were always there.